Welcome to our brand new property podcast.
Woohoo!
This has been in the works for a long time, and we're so excited to finally be able to speak to you regularly every month. We're going to have a property podcast where we talk about home ownership, property investing, and that's whether you're trying to buy your first home, you're trying to buy your second home, maybe you're wanting to buy an investment property. And that is exactly why we're proud to be partnering with BRRR, because they get it, they understand that there's no two situations that are the same.
And having a BNZ home loan partner in your corner, you'll always have the expert advice and tools that can help you make it happen. So thank you so much, BNZ, for helping empower this property podcast. Yes, Sophie, all right?
Well, I know, I feel very, what's the word when you're feeling quietly confident? Not that, like I'm feeling smug. I'm feeling smug because I planned this podcast.
And I feel very naked without my laptop.
Yeah. Vic normally hides behind her computer and all her research, but she has no idea what this episode's about, so.
It's kind of a story of my life, really, hiding behind my laptop. It's kind of a bit of it's like having a phone.
Didn't your niece say something to you about that?
I know. Why are you always on your laptop? And it honestly was like a stab to the heart. I was like, I'm not. What do you mean? I can play with you. I've got plenty of time. I've got, you know.
Yeah. When a kid calls you out, you're like, oh my God.
It's like when kids ask you why you wear makeup.
Why
That's
do
a hard
we?
one.
I know it really is, isn't it?
Yeah. Why do you look in the mirror? Why do you? Yeah. It's like you kind of just stuff that you've done you don't have answers to, and you're like, wow.
The makeup
it makes you
thing
stop and think.
Is really, really effing weird when you think about it. Because, and I've often thought about this. I feel like an average looking guy would be a really hot woman. You know what I mean? Because they do absolutely nothing to their skin, to their hair.
Was it you that was showing me the bun meme?
Oh, yeah. What was that? Where is that?
And it was like, when a guy uses...
Oh, no, it was two burger buns, one that looks disheveled and disgusting.
And wrinkly
you
and
wouldn't
like,
touch it with
crumpled, yeah.
Like it's completely deflated. And then one almost like a brioche plump,
perfect,
almost
shiny,
plastic looking bun top. And it's like the disheveled one is talking about me after my 8-step skincare routine, and then it's like my boyfriend's face after using the same soap he uses on his balls on his face.
It's so true.
God, it's true. So unfair. Anyway, the purpose of this podcast, Vic, is I have a surprise for you.
So Sophie's surprises always.
You get really skeptical. You're like the queen of surprises.
I'm sorry. The last surprise, I was dressed as a giant green blob of inflation. So can you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, that's fair. But that was fun and funny.
It was funny. Yeah.
You know, like you didn't look back on that surprise and think that was wasting my time. You
if
thought
the finance bros could see me now.
Yes, that's valid. Okay, so this is a secret / surprise that I've been hanging on to for actually an embarrassing amount of time.
You got a boob job.
Oh my God, does it look like I've had a boob job?
No, I'm just guessing.
No, I haven't. I don't think I ever will get a boob job. I love having small boobs. I'm so happy with them. No, this has nothing to do with my appearance.
Okay.
Do you trust me enough to close your eyes for like 2 seconds?
As long as you don't touch me.
I won't, I promise. But you do need to put your hand out. Yeah. Okay, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
Sorry.
Oh my God, trust me. I'm not going to put like a snake on your hand or anything.
That's what I'm scared of.
Okay, eyes closed. Do you promise you won't open?
I promise. Can I, will it hurt?
No. And you're going to be quite confused. Okay, open your eyes. Do you have any idea what the surprise is?
You got a new key ring.
I did actually. How good is it?
So
this is a new carabiner I found on the weekend to be nice and organized. Kato, I'm going to take one key off. Just while I'm doing this, maybe use your incredibly and talented brain.
You had a weekend of organization and you put...
I did actually. That is exactly what happened. I've got 2 sets of keys now for the office. I've got 2 swipies. For anyone that doesn't know me, I lose my shit literally constantly. Okay, this key that you need to look at.
You bought our office. You bought a house.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Congrats. Oh my God. Amazing.
this actually
You bought our office? I was like, this looks like our office here. Oh my God,
so I bought a house.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Full on proper. It's not a tent. It's not a
tent.
Yeah. So this happened like actually in all
Oh my God, how do you
honesty.
feel to be in debt to your eyeballs?
I don't know how to explain it. So for context, this happened honestly, it was like a couple of months ago and I haven't been able to tell you. I know, which is in itself so bizarre because I've told I told our producer Emily. And then Emily's known for ages. She's like, so have you told Vic yet? I'm like, no, because
oh my God.
because I wanted to be in the same place to tell you. And obviously I was in New Zealand and I was like, anyway.
That's so quick as well, babe. Like usually I was looking for ages.
So
and
it
the
happened
process
so quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. I was like quite shocked.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was, actually let's rewind for anyone that hasn't listened to our first so we did a property series in February and this was when I was going through my mortgage approval process. And at this point in time, I was frustrated. I was quite close to giving up in all honesty because it was like there was so many hurdles when it came to the mortgage.
Oh,
I felt like
setback after setback, and it's just like, is this even worth my time?
Yeah. And I think I was like, there was so many times that I fully just would cry because I was like, this is just so. I felt like I was trying to push through in a system that was just like has not moved with the times.
Like computer says no, and you're like, no.
Yeah. So anyway, so for anyone who missed it, this is just a little snippet of like what was going on at the time. But no, I think with my specific situation, I knew that I was gonna have to get creative. You know, like I knew it wasn't gonna be straightforward. Anyway, so I was going in this morning and I was like filming myself, being like, going in.
Oh no.
Woo, going to find out if I've been pre-approved, you know, doing the little like selfie video. And then I was recording it and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'll cry if this doesn't actually go through, because I sort of feel like I've had this weird sense of like, no, I've done this right. You know, like I've done my research. I've like really gone about it the right way. I've got an amazing team who have been helping me do it. And I know that if it's possible, they're going to be able to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so I went in and I was like in the waiting room and I was like, couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. I was feeling real nervous. And I was sitting there like, wow, I'm actually like quite nervous. Anyway, I went into the room. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like,
oh, Soph, babe.
Sorry. Oh my God.
Deep breaths.
It was real overwhelming because I went in like.
Take a breath. Give her a hug, Vic. It kind of reminds me of when I was going to New York and my dream was to go live in New York.
About me.
And I remember saying goodbye to my parents and I had my bags packed and I remember leaving the airport.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Do you know that's my worst nightmare is
That
champagne
is
popping.
so good.
What did we go for? What champagne is it?
This is a 2012 special. No. It's a
Beautiful.
Nicholas Full latte.
Oh my God, you got a cake!
And a cake.
It's fucking cake!
Although
Oh my
I
God,
did
there's
just
a
spill
cake.
the champagne everywhere. It just went off on its own and now everything is covered in champagne. But
Thank you so much. Guys, can I just say?
Where is it? What can we just go
yeah,
through?
we'll get to
like,
it in a
how
second.
many bedrooms? What does it
Yeah,
look like?
don't
Photos?
worry. We'll get there. This is going to sound quite self-indulgent, but I would like to make a toast.
Love that.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm making a toast to myself.
Don't lose that key.
Oh, don't lose the key.
Imagine.
And I don't think very often we celebrate our own wins. And I remember actually in that first episode that we did, I was like, so many of my friends are getting married and doing all the life stage things and getting dogs and celebrating, you know, first and 7 babies and I'm not. And I think that it's important actually to just like pause and be proud, because this was seriously one of the hardest things ever, to get to a place where I had the money, where I could get a mortgage and buy a fucking house. And I'm just like, I'm really proud of myself.
Same here.
Okay, cheers.
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 Okay, now I'll tell you all the details.
Every single stage of life is, I don't know, it seems like it's built around couples. it's like you get together and then you have an engagement party, then you have an anniversary and you have a wedding and then you have kids. And even buying a house is so skewed towards the couple. And so to do it on your own or like with a relative or with a friend just feels so much harder. So the fact that you've done that is insane, because sometimes it can feel like all the odds are stacked against you.
And also,
Oh, what?
Emily's bought a house.
Oh my
as
God,
well.
yeah, congratulations.
Everyone's got a house.
Everyone's got a house.
You can have a car and you can have a car.
It's actually so true though. And like Emily doing it when she's 24, amazing. So, and it's such, don't you think it's just the most emotionally turbulent time? I remember you were thinking about it for a while. Actually, maybe, do you feel comfortable sharing your?
Yes, yeah. I was just umming and ahhing about it for ages because I am 24 and I was, buying a house with my brother, and I kind of felt like I was living in a house with 5 of my friends in London, and I kind of felt like quite like a big life move. And so to be doing that at 24, moving out of London, I was kind of like, oh, have I cut myself a bit short? But yeah.
But I also think, yes, it's a big decision, but if you do it and you're like, oh, I don't actually want to live out of London, you know, there's alternatives. You kind of just have to do it and try. And then if you're like, I don't actually want to live that far out, or I don't want to, rent it, there's other options. And it's kind of, But
I think that's a really good point you bring up, Vic, which is there's not enough conversation, which is exactly why we're doing this property podcast. There's not enough conversation or education or awareness around the different ways you can invest in property and buy houses. And to your point, Emily, in a society that has law and regulation and so much red tape around this type of an investment, and it being all written in the favor of or for couples, makes it so hard to even have the dream or vision of I want to own a house or buy a house if you're not in a stable long-term relationship, because you just assume to do that you need to be in a relationship, and that's not the case. And I think hopefully us talking about all of our different experiences buying property and the different ways that you can make money through property, because it's an amazing investment, by talking about the different ways and approaches, hopefully there's more people who think about it differently rather than just first home equals house I live in with my partner, have a baby, that's how I make money, because there's so many ways of doing property.
Yeah, I think it's also another thing is the kinds of reactions that you get when you're not doing it in a couple. I found a lot of comments being like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, can you really trust them? And it's my brother. And I'm sure that
Did people ask you that?
No,
oh my God, that's so funny. But yeah, it is. It's people think it's a way bigger deal if it's not your partner, which is so strange.
And being like, can you trust them? And what if it goes wrong? And what are you going to do after this amount of time? But you could say that in a couple as well. I don't know why we're so geared towards, if you're not in a couple, then something's not quite right.
It's like with anything though, right? It's like when something's been done in a certain way for so long and then someone changes the status quo and does it a bit differently, everyone's like, oh, it's like even women working and not being stay-at-home mums, everyone's like, oh, well, aren't you going to miss your kids, and aren't you going to, it's like just because I'm not doing what everyone else has done, or I'm part of the minority, not the majority, change scares people, because but the more people that do it, then the more common it becomes. Also, the more support, the more resources, the more education, the more alternative funding
and
sources,
products that come up, because
So where is it?
I was going to say, do you want to hear about my house?
Yes.
Basically what happened was I got approved in the end, so I was doing it with a friend of mine. We both had to be like equally and jointly responsible for the mortgage.
So like you had to do half each?
No, so I had to be able to service. So we went for a $500,000 mortgage, which is obviously quite low, to be honest, in the scheme of what a lot of people go for from a mortgage perspective. But because I was based over here, they could only use 70% of my income. So you
bought in New Zealand?
I bought in New Zealand. Yeah, bought in New Zealand.
Okay.
And the reason I bought in New Zealand was because, I don't know, I felt like the New Zealand property market is quite unique in its returns, and I wanted to do an investment property rather than a first home, because obviously I'm not living in New Zealand.
Yep.
And I also couldn't really afford to buy in the UK because
where you want to live and what you can afford are probably two different things.
Well, I would be buying in the middle of nowhere.
You just wouldn't be able to live where close to friends and stuff, and so you'd have quite a different experience.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, that's out of the question. And I had this guy actually slide into the Instagram DMs in a very non-sleazy way. Basically being like, my wife listens to the podcast and I hear that you're thinking about buying property. And he was basically like, I have been doing the BRRR approach, the buy, renovate, rent out, refinance. He was like, it's a really great approach for people who are overseas particularly, who want to buy an investment property in New Zealand. I do like kind of a full service approach of like start to finish, help find the house, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we'll do like a full episode with him because he's amazing and his approach to property is so interesting. It's just really interesting to learn how it all works. But basically, I decided to do this approach. I had a few Zoom calls with him and I was like, he's awesome. And I feel like he knows what he's doing. And like, obviously it was a bit of a risk because he sort of was starting his own thing. He'd done it a few times himself, but he was like, I'm happy to kind of do it with you as sort of like a, I guess for him, like a testimonial, right? Because he's like wanting to start a business doing it. Anyway, my friend and I, who I was going to buy with, we were both on the same page being like, cool, this feels like a really good opportunity. Let's do it. So we got approved for 500,000 New Zealand dollars and which
is about £250,000. Yeah. But you had to service it. Like if the person you're going in with accidentally passed away, you would have to take responsibility of that. And
Totally.
You wouldn't be able to pay, so you'd have to, So therefore your money, your income, your assets, all that has to be able to cover that. That kind of how it works?
Yeah. So,
which again, sorry, is quite weird because in a couple, like a romantic couple, it's not one doesn't have to be able to service the entire mortgage.
really?
No. Yeah, look at your joint income, your joint, like it's,
That's so outrageous, isn't it?
So you should have just put a ring on it and gone into the bank and be like, hi.
Oh my God. He has a girlfriend. I think that would have been a little bit weird.
Cross the line. Be like, we promise we're just doing it to get a mortgage.
Imagine a fake engagement. Yeah. Also, like the newspaper. Sophie Horrocks from The Curve pretends to be engaged.
It's the annoying thing about having a podcast and talking about absolutely everything. You can't like even do a white lie. Yeah.
Oh, nah. I know. Yeah. Not ideal. So yeah, we both got approved for the mortgage. Tick, tick, tick. And when I say tick, 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 it wasn't tick, tick, tick. It was, oh my God. Tick, like it took ages. Anyway, got there.
Do you want some?
I'm so into how much you're shoveling this cake into your mouth.
It's just like it's lunchtime for anyone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So then maybe a week after we were approved, so this was months ago. Do you know how hard it was to keep this secret from you, by the way? It was.
I'm quite shocked at how much time has gone by.
I know.
And here I think she's just going to open homes and like, it takes a while. Like mine took a while.
I know, like Vic with her emotional support being like, don't worry, babe. Like it takes ages.
You'll get it. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I already want a house.
It's like someone being pregnant for 3 months and not being able to tell anyone.
Oh,
you know, that first 3 months and you're like, don't worry, babe, it'll happen. It will totally happen when the time's right.
I know. But the worst part is that I had told a few people. So I was like,
worried them.
I was so worried it was going to come back to you. Anyway, basically what happened was about a week after we were approved, Pete, aka my amazing property fairy godfather, we'll go with that, fairy godfather, he sent us a link and was like, I found this really great property. It kind of ticks all the boxes in terms of the investment approach that we're going for, which is buy a house, buy it for a low amount, so ideally get it cheaper than like its sort of CV, so what it's been valued at. Before doing that, you basically need to know that you can add enough value to get an immediate equity uplift.
Yes. Whoa.
Yeah. So we go into way more detail with Pete on this. So like we will go into way more detail. But at a high level, there's like certain boxes that we were trying to tick in order to make sure that the house that we chose and then bought made sense. So it was a really strategic, we weren't emotionally buying a house. We weren't trying to buy something to live in. I was never going to be living in it.
Do you mean you're buying something that's best house on the worst street or?
So that's often a flipping approach. Yeah, so you buy, the worst house on the best street is a really good approach if you're trying to buy, immediately renovate and then sell on.
Got you. Okay.
So our approach was, at the moment, the property market's like at a real lull. It's, you know how they say there's sort of like 5 to 7 years of a property cycle.
Yeah.
I think it used to be 10, but now it's like shorter.
Yeah.
So at the moment, a lot of properties are valued and selling for a lot less than their CV, a lot less than their value.
Yeah.
So essentially for us, we decided we wanted to do like a dual approach. We wanted to do like an active and a passive investment approach to property, which sounds kind of confusing, but essentially what it means is it's buying, immediately adding value, but then also holding on to it. So unlike flipping a house,
Gotcha.
we were buying well. We had to buy at a certain price, so we couldn't buy it for more than X amount. Then we knew how much we wanted to spend on renovations, with the hope, our goal for the project was to add 100 grand of an immediate equity uplift.
And how do you do that? Is that adding a lick of paint? Is it adding a bedroom? Is it lots of different things?
And this is what I learned through the process, which I think is so valuable. And I think for anyone listening to this who's interested in potentially doing this kind of approach to property, we'll put, I think, a wait list or a short, like a sort of kind of a sign up form in the investing club, because I think there's a lot of people that would be interested, because it was amazing. I'm so stoked with how this investment's gone so far. And I know that it's early doors, but basically the things that you would spend would be like, you will try and avoid having to paint in the outside, because it doesn't really add much. Things like, is the roof in good condition? Because you don't want to have to go and fork out 25 grand to redo a roof. It's trying to add cosmetic uplift internally without having to spend too much money. So things like adding a bedroom is a huge win, because that means that like a young family can have a couple of kids in the house. That's ideally who we were trying to rent the house out for. It's things like new kitchen, new bathroom, new carpet, paint internally, things like that. But yeah, there's obviously massive no-no. So when we were looking for properties, often you'd be like, oh, this seems perfect. But then, oh, it's got a rotting roof, so you're going to have to pay. So then it's an immediate no. So there has to be like very specific things. So anyway, it just so happened that this house in Whangarei, so this is in the North Island in New Zealand. This is like a sort of,
it's like it's 2 hours out of Auckland, like the major city.
Like I don't ever plan on living in Whangarei, but it's a place where there's like a lot of young families. And so a lot of people, when I was choosing where I would buy, everyone was like, why are you not buying in Auckland? Why would you not buy in a main centre like London or whatever?
Yeah.
And I guess for me it was like, because we were going for an investment property, we needed a 30% deposit.
Yeah. And that's a lot for an average house price in Auckland.
Yeah. So. And the point is to buy, like our approach to property and what I'm doing is I'm trying to buy low, add value, hold on to it, refinance, and go again. So I'm trying to get a property portfolio of like, I'd love in the next year to have 3 houses.
Yeah.
That are a lot less in terms of its value price than someone's first home when they're living in the main centre with their 3 babies.
Yeah.
But because I don't need to live in a specific area, I just needed the boxes ticked financially in terms of what we would be renovating.
Have you seen the house?
Yeah.
Okay,
I went to
like,
see
is that
it.
weird, like not seeing
No, I went to see it. I actually smashed it up. Like I had a sledgehammer and I went for it. Yeah, because I was like, this
exciting.
is so fun. Yeah, it was quite aggressive.
Like what, just like one room?
The kitchen. I went to town on the kitchen. It was actually so funny. The neighbour came up as I was there with my hivers and my giant sledgehammer. That's right. No, he was looking from afar. There was this dude kind of lingering. I actually went up with one of our friends, Lauren. She was there with me. Anyway, this guy sort of lingering, looking. And I was like, oh my God, he thinks that we're just smashing it. And we were like,
you're like, I actually own it.
You're welcome to come in. And then he came in. He was like, what are you guys doing? And I was like, oh, and I tried to explain it. But he was so confused with the fact that we were filming me trying to break a house. He was just so wigged out. I was like, do you want to give it a whack? And he was like, will I get in trouble?
Oh my God.
I was like, no. I promise I own this house. He was like, so I can hit it and make a hole and I'm not going to get in trouble. I was like,
oh my God.
It was honestly, it took like 10 minutes to be like, you're not going to get arrested for smashing this kitchen. Just go for it. Anyway, then his name was Marshall. It was lovely man. Anyway, he ended up smashing the kitchen and I didn't realize how pathetic I was being until he came along. Like, wow, It was like I was like making a little dent here and there, and then he
Did you do a little joke being like, "Oh, not that part," and he's like, "Oh shit."
No, that would be no, because it took him so long to believe that he wasn't going to escorted off by the police.
Also, when he's holding a sledgehammer, you probably you don't
not
wanna
a time to be making jokes. Yeah. But yeah, I went and saw it, and I was like, oh wow. I think that.
So how many bedrooms?
So it was 3.
Yeah.
And then we added a bedroom.
Nice.
So we renovated the bathroom, the kitchen. We did. Yeah, this is all. So the renovation, we bought it and we did the renovation within 5.5 weeks. We had it rented within about 6.5 weeks.
You've already got renters in there.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
So we basically
and
budgeted,
does the rental cover the mortgage?
Yeah, it covers everything. Amazing. And that's the whole approach to this property, is that I then can refinance it, go again, and cover both, so that both of the mortgages are being covered without having to. But I'm only paying interest. We're not paying down principal. Okay, backtrack. So basically, what happened was when Pete was like, right, it's going to auction. So like, for anyone that's not bought a house, having to do all the due diligence for a house and then go to auction kind of sucks, because the chances are you do all of this work and then you go to auction and there's 7 other people and you get outbid. I wasn't there. It was in Whangarei. So it was like an online, like I did it on the phone. My friend who I bought it with was on Zoom. Pete was on Zoom. And I was like, honestly, I actually filmed myself. So we'll definitely need to make a video out of it because it was so funny. But I was so nervous. And basically Pete had been like to me, look, if you're the only one there, this is what to expect. If there's other people here, this is what to expect. Like, I wouldn't have had a clue what to do had he not been like giving me the lowdown on everything. So we turned up, as in on the phone, and started bidding. And I think we started bidding at like 300 and something. I didn't know this, but apparently if you start bidding, like you don't want to start at like 100,000, because it's like, it's got to sell for like, close to 500. So like, don't spend forever at it. So I went straight in at like 300 or 350. I think got to about 380, and then they stopped the.
So you've got $500,000
as my mortgage approved.
Yeah, and you're bidding at 350.
So the reason I did that is that we'd done all of our costings before this, right? So we knew the max we could spend on this house was 407,000.
Okay, yeah.
That was the max that we could spend, because we then needed to spend about 80,000 on the renovation.
Got you. Okay, yeah.
So then post renovation, we wanted to have a minimum of 100 grand as the equity uplift. So like when it's valued, we've made 100,000. So if we bought it for like 407, we spent 80,000 on it. That's like 487,000. We needed it to be valued at 587,000 post renovation to have made that immediate return.
Yep.
So we had all these quotes for like how much it was going to cost for carpet, how much it was going to cost for labor, for the kitchen, for all this. So we knew we only had 80,000 to spend on that. And so we couldn't overspend on the purchase price. Otherwise, we wouldn't make that return. And the whole point is you go through all of this like rigmarole to renovate and to go and add all this value. If you're not making any money on it, what's the point? Just buy and hold. Do you know what I mean? It was like, because we were doing an active and a passive approach, whereby we wanted to buy a house, we wanted to immediately add value to it and hold on to it for a minimum of 5 years to get that principal increase of like the. So for example, in 5 years' time, obviously it depends on what's happening in the market, but the idea is that hopefully in 5 years' time, the value of that property will have significantly gone up.
Yeah.
So if we had bought it for more than 407,000, we would have been eating into that 100,000, which was our target, which if you're then only going to make 50 grand or 20 grand or whatever, is it really worth the energy of going and buying and renovating? Like, just buy a house and hold on to it and just make money on holding on to it for a long period of time because it's going to increase, So for us, that was the max that we could pay.
And have you had it revalued now?
Yeah. And so don't worry, we're getting there. So this is a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
We were at about 350. So I knew I couldn't go past 407.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to start at like 400 and then all of a sudden be like, cool, bye, I'm done now. And there was no one else turned up to the auction. Literally no one turned up. So I was bidding against, they had someone kind of like bidding to keep it going, which I didn't even know was a thing.
There's someone that's bidding as the seller to try and like get it up above reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's usually like if no one's there, it's you and the auctioneer, which was the same in my case. There was a few people at the beginning, they dropped off. And then I was just bidding with the auctioneer. I was like, this is weird.
But at least you knew, because I was on a phone, so I couldn't see who it was. So I didn't know what was going on. So I think we got to 380 and I'd been like, sold, or whatever you say. Or yes, 380. Hello. Hi, me.
Yeah.
And then they said something and I went again. Yeah, yep. Me. And they
390. And they were like, no.
They were like, no, you're still bidding against your. It was really weird. I was a bit confused. I should watch the video back and be like, what actually happened there? But I think what happened was the auctioneer was like, we're really far away from the reserve. You're the only one here. So we went straight into negotiations.
Yeah, okay.
So I was like, oh my God. You know, like sweating and nervous and just like, oh my God, what's happening? And I kept muting like the call with the auctioneer and all the people listening to go back and talk to my friend and, you know, and be like, what do I do? Oh my God. You know, like having this like that. And then be like, having to be really composed on the phone and be like,
I'll do
yep,
385.
Yeah. I'll do that. So anyway, I kept being like, should I? Blah, blah, and then like coming back and being like, anyway, it was chaotic. But basically what happened was we then went into negotiations. So at this point, I knew I'm the only one going for the house. And I also knew I couldn't go above 407. Like it was a hard stop for me.
Yeah.
And Pete had been like to me, don't show your cards in terms of what your price is. You really want people to feel like they're being negotiated with and that you're giving some and they're giving some. And like, it's a whole strategic process, right? So he was basically like to me, look, I'm just going to tell you what the CV is. It's 485. That's what the seller wants for it. We're at 380 right now. We're quite far away. And as soon as he said that, because obviously everyone else was on the phone listening in on the call, and I saw everyone's faces and everyone's like, oh, no, we're not going to get it. And so I was like, oh, damn, we're so not going to get it because we're so far away.
Yeah.
There's no way we can pay close to that.
It's like $100,000.
It's like $100,000. Like it's a lot. And so they were like, look, I know that it's probably going to need to get to like the 400, blah, blah, blah. And I'd said, look, my hard stop is 390. Like that's what I came here today. And that was strategic because. Which I know sounds so lame, but like.
Psychological, eh? Like
it
it's
is.
like. And then they're like, well, is that actually their limit? And then like, oh, I'll give them an extra 10 grand and they'll come in 10 grand. Oh, it's just
but
like.
you don't know that unless someone tells you. And I think that's what's a real disadvantage for people that are going for properties for their first round. You have no idea what a building report is, what a limb report is, what are this, what are that. Like there's so much jargon. And so I think having firstly a friend to be doing it with, so I wasn't like alone in it, because I think it's quite scary.
Yeah.
It's a huge purchase. Going into that auction alone without any guidance from Pete or from my friend, I would have it would have been so scary, and there's no way I would have got the house. Like it was so strategic. So then I said, okay, 390, you know, we went back and forth from like 380 to 390 to 395, and then we eventually got, and I was doing all the small talk with the guy on the phone, because you can imagine I'm not afraid. Like I can talk to a wall if I need to. So there I was being like, oh, you know, how's the weather in Whangarei? You know, like really just going for it in between, trying to like calm my own nerves, but also like keep the conversation going. And then they kept coming back in. Anyway, it turned out that the guy who owned the house bought it 40 years ago for $33,000.
Wow.
So
that in itself, like, oh.
So he bought it 40 years ago for $33,000.
And people will be listening to this podcast in 40 years' time going, gosh, Soph got a bargain at 407 or whatever you bought it for.
So
you're like, hopefully.
So basically the guy kept saying to me, look, I think we're going to need to get it into the fours. You know, it's going to have to get to 400. Otherwise, I don't think it'll sell. And in my head, I'm like, please don't go over 400, because like that was so close to my absolute hard stop, right? I made it out like I was really coming to the party. I was like, okay, look, like that's my hard stop, but like, maybe I can go to, So it was a bit of that, which maybe we shouldn't be giving the secrets away, but I feel like everyone needs to know them, because otherwise you're not going to be able to win at auction. So anyway, basically it finally got to the point where he was like, can you do 400? And I was like, oh, look,
I'm going to have to sell the cat. I'm going to have to sell some clothes in my wardrobe.
Yeah.
But I can get
I was like, oh, look, okay, just give me a minute to think about it. And I like really was being such a salesperson about it. And then I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Like, but I'm being very honest, there's absolutely no movement, because there actually wasn't, to be fair. Even if they'd said 405 maybe, but I was just like, I'm kind of done at this point. And I kept saying, look, I don't want to waste anyone's time. This is my genuine, I can't go above this. So just
if they don't take
if
this,
they don't take it, then this
yeah.
is the last one, you know, because we'd gone back and forth like 5 times at this point. Apparently it was like one of the longest negotiations ever. I was like, is this a good thing? Am I good at this?
Like you're just exhausting them, just like tie them out and eventually they'll come to my price.
Anyway, then they were like, okay, Malcolm, or whatever his name was, is happy with 400. And I looked to the screen and I saw my friend and Pete just like losing their shit, being like, oh my God. And I had to really
and you're like,
and I was
okay,
like,
thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Being like,
so good.
And like my parents were standing outside the bedroom door listening, so excited for me. They wanted to watch and I was like, no
Absolutely.
way too nerve-wracking, like stay outside. Then they go back out to the auction room, which I didn't realize, and they went back out and they were like, did the whole thing again where they were like, okay, going for 400, going once, going twice. And I was being like, oh my God, what if someone pipes up? And then it's like, kidding, I'll buy it. So I was like, oh, maybe I haven't got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, then sold. And I was like, I actually like, I can't even explain how
the feeling
it felt. Like even thinking back on it, it makes me want to cry. Like
you're like, I have a house.
I was like, oh my God, I did it. Like, holy shit. Like, and I like jumped up from my my parents like burst in and were like hugging me, and I was like, honestly, just like it was so surreal. I was like, I can't even believe that I bought a fucking house. Like,
yeah,
I think
it's amazing.
There's just like so many times where I was like, I don't know if I can like get, I don't know, I
can get there, or like have the
emotional
effort,
resilience,
yeah,
like,
to keep going when it's like you get whacked down and say no.
Yeah, when it was bought and we then had to like transfer like $40,000, I was like, this is the most
like
money I've
straight
ever
away
had to transfer ever. And I was like, it kept saying partial match on the online. Like, I was like, this would just be my luck that I transfer $40,000 to the wrong account. like close attention here.
Yeah.
Anyway, my lawyer, Hannah, who's like amazing, sent like a bottle of champagne to the house, and it was honestly the most euphoric feeling ever. And so basically what happened was, because
meanwhile I'm sitting here being like,
I know, and you had no idea.
She's having a real tough time.
I know. Well, I really wanted to tell you. I wanted to record with you before you left to come back over to London.
Yeah.
And I booked in the record. I made up some excuse as to what the record would be. In fact, was like, I don't really need to be there. Like, I don't really need to be there. Like, you can just do it yourself.
I
even
that,
said
and
that
I was
someone
like,
flying in for it. I was like, someone's flown especially for this.
Oh my
and
God,
Vic's like,
that's right.
No. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to. And I was being like, trying everything to be like, please.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah. Please come. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to like tell her when I get to London.
Oh my God, lol.
So that was kind of what happened. But basically, so because we bought it for 400, we like, firstly, tick, right? Because this is in line with like what our numbers said in terms of getting this equity uplift. So bought it, started renovations like really quite quickly. Went up, smashed the kitchen out, etc. And then, renovations started, and they took 5.5 weeks, which is record time. And that's credit to Pete for being just like so bloody good. He had like already.
How does Pete get paid?
So Pete was doing it for me as like a testimonial, because this was kind of a risk for me too, right? Because I was doing it with someone who didn't really have a setup. Like, he had experience doing it for himself, but not for someone else. But he didn't have, so I was kind of taking a bit of a risk in a way. He could have been terrible and done a really shit job, and I would have potentially not made any money from it. But I was sort of just like, worst case scenario here is we blow out on the renovations. We don't make very much of a return in terms of that instant equity uplift. But the rental covers the rental covers mortgage. It. Yeah. I'm only paying interest, and I'm going to hold it anyway. So like, worst case scenario, I'll get long-term returns by holding onto the house for like 5 years. Yeah. So I was sort of, and I just trusted him. I thought he was really cool and nice, and I don't know, I just had a good feeling about it. And I thought, you do have to be a bit risky sometimes, you know, and it's taken me so long to get to the place where I could even buy one that I was like, just risk it. Like, just give it a go. Like, I like weighed up pros and cons, and I just felt like the pros outweighed the potential blowout. So anyway, started renovations. They were done within like 5.5 weeks, and then we got handed over to a property manager. They found a tenant. Amazing. But we got it revalued. So this was the best part of the whole thing. So we had someone come in, and they basically look around the house, right? And they're like, oh yeah, this is the land. They like compare it to, and so this was all part of the process that we did before we bought the house. Was we looked at houses and what they're selling for in the surrounding streets and suburbs. What were the pros and cons of those? Did they have more land? Did they have more rooms? Blah, 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 blah. And then you try and basically predict what you think the valuation will be after that. So, and that's kind of how you get to your target of like the numbers that you need for purchase price, for the amount you spend on reno, for then the revalue of what you think you can get it revalued at, if that makes sense.
Why the 100,000?
For the amount of effort we were going to.
Sorry, yes, yeah.
Why bother otherwise? And also, I was sharing the return with my friend. So for me, it was only going to be a 50,000, and that's New Zealand. That's actually only £25,000. Yeah, it's already not enormous, you know, but it was good enough. I was like incentivized to do it.
Yeah, it's like if you sold it right now, you would have made 25,000. Is that worth the time and effort that you've put in?
Yeah, that's kind of where you get to with it. So, in order for us to make that instant kind of return on our investment, we needed it to be valued at, hold on, if we bought it for 400, then we spent 80,000 on that.
You needed 400.
580. We needed it to for 580. So the valuer came in, looked around, and I was like, God, this could be really good, or it could be really bad.
You're like, have you seen the kitchen? Have you seen the bedroom? It's like, yes. We got new carpet. It's like, yes, 100%. I can see that. Sorry.
So Pete was like, I threw him 300 and sent him a box of beers, and I was like, are you joking? Like, I think that's illegal. And he was like, of course I'm joking, you idiot. Like, of course that's a joke.
What do you mean?
Well, he was kind of joking, being like, I'm trying to bribe him to give us a good valuation.
Yeah.
Where I was like, and for a second I was like, quite clever, but also, will we go to jail? He was like, obviously that's illegal. And no, I did not do that. Anyway, so then the valuation came back. I'm just trying to get so it was valued at just over 600,000.
Oh my God, amazing.
So we made 122,000
in 5 weeks. Poor Malcolm.
Don't do that to me.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No, don't do that to me, because that's what I felt really guilty for afterwards. Honestly, like I did, because I was like, oh my God, have I just cheated someone out of their retirement money? You know, like, because I did. I totally
may
spiraled.
have not had the 80 grand to do the renovations, you know. He may have not. There've been so many situations, you know, you have no idea on someone's situation. So,
but it is this weird moral dilemma where it's like,
sorry,
I can't buy it for a certain amount. But I guess the thing is, I wouldn't have bought it for more than that. He wouldn't have sold it. He might have really needed to sell.
Totally, you have no idea.
But it is. It's this really weird thing where it's like, oh God, like he wanted 485. He was 85,000 less than what he wanted. Will that really impact him and his retirement? And like, you know, it actually genuinely played on my mind a lot. I felt really uncomfortable about it afterwards. Oh, I don't know. It's a really funny one. His return, he bought it for 33,000. And then, I mean, he would have made like a, I don't know, 100%, what.
And also, it's kind of the same with shares, right? You're always buying off someone who's selling. And if that share price goes up, they've lost out, you've gained. And vice versa. If you bought off them, the share price falls, they're winning, you're losing. Like, it's kind of just life. In the nicest way. You know, like a transaction, there's always a buyer and a seller. Someone could have bought that off Malcolm and sat on it, and the property market done terribly and be worse off. You know, like the fact that you were an active investor and you'd done your numbers and you actually wanted to generate a return and you knew how and you had the expertise, that's not a bad thing. That shouldn't be, you can't go around like...
It is a weird, the thing is, I you know, when you said Paul Malcolm, I get it, because that I did really have that moment of like, shit. I think at the end of the day, he didn't have to sell it. He could have held on to it. He could have sold it for someone else.
And also think about all the other women now who have just listened to this, who are like, actually, I've got a friend that I could buy with, or like, you know, there's so many other positives to come out of here.
I
don't know. I just feel like I shouldn't have said that. Sorry.
No. I think it's a really valid and valuable thing to bring up, because it was something that I like sat on and felt a bit weird about afterwards. You know, I was just saying.
Do you know what this cake reminds me of? Was that Cake and Matilda?
Oh, and they just keep making him eat
And I feel like the bigger the hole that I'm making, I'm like, oh my God, my fingers are just like, you know, with the hands. So good.
And so we'll go into more detail with like the process and the pros and cons of this type of property buying, because I think it's really important to know that this is obviously only going to work for some people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this is the be all and end all of, but for me, for someone who couldn't live in a property, who couldn't do it by herself, who also really wanted to make decent returns out of property investment and understands the idea of leverage and borrowing money from the bank and how that can amplify the amount of money you can make. To me, I was like, this is an amazing investment for me if it goes well.
Yeah.
And then the other part of that is I also didn't want to go and put all of my money into the property market yet. I wasn't ready to. I wanted to keep some in shares. And so to be able to do it in this way meant that I could still put a decent amount of money into property, but I wasn't undiversified. And I think for me, I liked that. Like I liked the idea of having, you know, some money in stock still, some in my retirement fund, some in property.
Yeah.
And so we'll go into more detail with Pete on like this particular approach to property and how we did it and in more detail, because I think it's such a valuable and important thing to learn. And if you're interested in investing in this way, join the investing club, because we'll do a short list to help you find out if this kind of property investment could be right for you. And if so, you know, pass you on to Pete or the right person to do it. But my biggest learnings were how creative you can get with different asset classes, whether that's stocks or property, and how important it is for people to understand the various ways that you can do it.
And it's like anything new, right? It's just you got to talk to people, talk to different people, you know, ask them how they did it, ask about the different approaches, talk to banks, it's talking to as many people as possible, and you'll feel like, oh, I didn't realize you could do that, because
actually this particular type of investment you can buy an investment property if you have a home. The refinancing piece, I'm actually looking at maybe doing a second one, and which is wild, absolutely wild. Within like 3 months to be thinking about buying a second property is like absolutely outrageous. But there's so much to understand around if you have a property, you can actually like refinance or use the equity in the house to buy again. So if I do this again, the amount that I put in is significantly less than the first time, which then makes sense with the property ladder, right? You're
once you get the first one, then it's like that's
so much easier to keep going. It's like wealth and money breeds wealth and money.
Yeah.
So I bought a fucking house.
Woohoo!
It's honestly so nice to be able to talk about it finally. Because
I wish we'd done a podcast in the house. We probably still
it was hard enough to get you in your own house.
I know, yeah. We could have just asked the tenants, be like, do you mind just...
I did film like going to see it meeting the neighbour. And oh my God, the neighbour was being like, if you're making all this noise, I make a lot of noise with drum and bass. I was like, oh dear God, I'm not going to be able to rent this house out because the neighbour plays the loudest drum and bass.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
And who are the tenants? A family?
So there's a young mum. She's a single mother. And she's got 2 young kids. I think she's quite young. She's like 24.
Oh, yeah.
And she used to work in the supermarket. She worked her way up to being manager. And then she recently became a single mum and moved to Whangarei to be closer to her family. Oh, yeah. So I think she must have broken up with her partner. And so this is like the perfect house for her. It was interesting because she's on the benefit. That was something where I was like, oh my God, she's a single mum. She's not working. I had to really do the math around like how much is she getting for her benefit, and like is she going to be able to afford to pay the rent, because which is kind of a funny one, because obviously I was like, perfect, I'd love for there to be a single mum with her kids in our house, like what a perfect tenant. But then the idea of like, oh gosh,
in some cases they're the best tenant because the money goes straight to the landlord, doesn't even go to them.
Well, that's exactly what the property manager said. They were like, if for some reason she can't pay it or something happens, the people who pay the benefit kind of can step in, or anyway, that was just interesting to know. But I think the biggest piece here is like a lot of people think with mortgages or buying property, you have to be constantly topping up the mortgage. If you do your numbers properly and you buy within the right range of what you can afford, like I'm not putting any money towards topping up my mortgage. Like it's all self-sufficient. And if I go again, it will all be self-sufficient. I think that's like insane to think that I'm making, first of all, an instant equity uplift. Yeah. Secondly, holding on to them for a period of time so they grow in value, and not having to chip into my salary from month to month to pay it off. That's absurd. Yeah. It's such an amazing...
And also with interest rates coming down as well, you know, you get that gap is only... Like if your rent's staying the same and your and mortgage rates coming down and down, which means that you're paying less interest on the mortgage, then you almost can be in a position where you're making money because your rental income is greater than your mortgage.
So I think we're like clearing about $8,000 a year
Oh yeah, nice.
So it's not a lot, but it's enough to cover like maintenance and things that go wrong.
Totally.
Blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
yeah.
But another point I just wanted to bring up is, you know, and Emily was mentioning this at the start in terms of there's a lot of, I don't know, people think, oh, you're buying with a friend, therefore it may be more dodgy or whatever. We were really clear with each other on how long we wanting to hold this for in a minimum so that we're on the same page. So there's no conversation of we're actually not selling this any earlier than 5 years.
Yeah.
Neither of us going to need the money before then. Obviously there's different things, but we needed to like get a will in place. We needed to think about getting insurance on each other, blah, 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 blah. There's a whole lot of stuff that we had to like think about and put in place, but we actually bought it and did it through a company. So we did like a look through company rather than doing it within our own names. So we've really like legitimized it in the sense that it's a business that's buying and responsible for the, what are you laughing at?
No, this is making sense now because Mum emailed me and she was like, someone's been requesting documents from the company's house with our New Zealand company, or someone requested. So we used to be a New Zealand company, now we're a UK company, and we've kind of just like a bit of a shell. Like there's nothing in New Zealand except I think we're still directors of this non-existent company. And like something property, what did you call the company?
Hackney Property.
Yeah. They're like, and Mum's like, Hackney Property has been asking for
quite
some documents on the New Zealand Curve company. And I was like, instantly, this is so bad. I was like, Soph. I thought it was the Hackney. I thought it was the Hackney Council was like chasing Soph to pay me.
Which, to be fair, would be on brand.
And I was like, but the company doesn't exist. I was like, just ignore it. I was like, oh my God, quite funny. It's all making sense now.
Yeah, so that's what happened.
I thought it was the Hackney Council.
That's like, so funny.
And I was like, they've chased her to New Zealand. I was like, wow. Anyway, sorry.
No.
That's quite funny.
So basically we've got like a shareholders agreement. So we're both 50-50 shareholders of the business, which owns the property.
Yeah.
So then if we go and buy another property, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it just means that we have our little business meetings once a month where we talk about, you know, what needs to be done. We have our emergency fund for the house. So we've got money in case, you know, we need to blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it's been a real grown up investment for me and
nice.
So far so good.
Yay. Can we eat cake now?
Yeah, we can eat the cake. And also for anyone who has any questions about this episode or like wants to know more, please get in touch because I'm all of a sudden a property freak. Like I'm loving it. It's such a fun.
I'm excited to see pictures.
Lol, you just fucking chomping away at the cake while talking. Yeah, I'll show you videos. Oh,
this is the best part. Didn't listen to anything you said. Just sat here enjoying the cake.
Yeah, I'll show you the before and afters.
What advice would you give someone that was in your position, which we saw on that podcast not that long ago, a few months ago, that's about to give up hope?
I think what you said earlier about doing your research, there are so many ways to buy property. So many. And I think that the best thing you can do is have a mentality of a really hungry, determined, I'm going to make this happen. Because I think that if I hadn't, to be really honest, if it wasn't for this podcast and the fact that this was such a public situation, maybe I would have been, I just can't be bothered. This is just too hard. But I think you're like, the people need me to keep going. Principally, it was like, I hate the idea that this is so hard. And if this is so hard for me, imagine how hard it is for everyone else. There's got to be a way, you know? And I think so. I think that it comes down to
talking to people.
But
also if you're like, who do I talk to? It's like, just talk. Start by just talking to anyone who's bought a house. Like if someone came to me and was like, look, I just am really struggling to buy a house, even though I probably wasn't the right person to ask, at least I know, actually I should put you in touch with Soph or put you in touch with Pete, or like, you know, like you never know if that, even though that person might not seem like they have the answers, they can introduce you to other people. It's like,
So I think creatively about your deposit.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody in your life? Do you have any friends, anyone that you trust that is in a similar position where maybe they're single? Or think about it creatively, because you can structure it in any way. Say you have 50,000 as a deposit. Someone else might have 150, you know, and you can just do what we did with our company holding and have like weighted shareholding so that someone has like way more shares. There's so many ways of dealing with the deposit side. I think that's the first part. I think differently about the idea of property investment. Don't put the pressure on yourself to think you need to buy a house to live in that you love, that's in a cool area. You can actually change your mindset around like, okay, if buying a home, as in I need to get $1 million mortgage to be able to be in the area that I want to live in, is not possible, think of it as a ladder. What is a stepping stone to get to that goal?
Yeah.
Start with something smaller. Start with an investment property. Yes, you need 30%, so it's more than like a 20% deposit, but you can buy anywhere. That goes for anywhere in the world. You don't just have to buy in the main centers. You can invest in property, build equity, and then get to the next goal. Like I think, don't think of it as like you've got to go from zero to the end goal immediately.
You're not buying your $1 million house yet.
No, yet. It's yet. It's not that you can't afford it. It's that you can't yet. I think that's a really big one. I think speaking to several different mortgage advisors to understand, like, you know, if I'd just taken the first person I spoke to who basically told me it was impossible and kind of laughed at me, I could have not ever bought a house. I think that it's so important to always
I'm just like
ask
that
the
person.
why.
I'm like, way to kill people's dreams, eh?
Yeah.
Like look at me now, bitch.
But it is, no, but I do
But
think.
you know, it's like, just, even if it was a no, I don't know. There's
But
just
I
ways.
think that the thing to learn from that though is to take the responsibility into your own hands. Someone else isn't going to try and figure the system out for you.
True. Yeah,
you have to figure the system out yourself. If computer says no, you do the research. You have to have the fire in your belly to find a new way of doing something, because I think
That's true.
no one's going to go out of their way if it's not of benefit to them. This is your project. Think of it in that way. You get a no, you get creative. You ask someone else. You know, it's like, it's got to be, you've got to approach it in that way.
No is never no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not, this way.
Rejection is redirection.
Yeah.
Definitely was in your case.
Yes. And I think the other thing would be when you're in the process of, if you haven't quite got to the point where you're pre-approved for a house, or you bought a house, or maybe you own a property and you're trying to go again and you're really struggling to get through whatever hoops you need to, spend that time continuing to learn about the legalities, the things that you need. Do your costings, be proactive, because for us, when this property came up, it was all of a sudden, oh, good Lord, we have to move quickly. Use your time wisely. Just research, learn, understand everything. Yeah, so like making sure that you have all the people you need, a lawyer, a blah, blah, blah. Also, honestly, just come to us. Like, that's what the investing club's for.
Yep.
If you feel stuck and you're wanting to know how to invest in anything, and if that's property, get in touch. We know amazing people who can help. Yeah, coming together with like your community, whether it's within the investing club or your friends and family. Like, people want to see you succeed. And I think in the moments of weakness, when you're like, I'm over this sucks, like that's when you reach out to people for support, because you need to just reinvigorate your own drive to keep going.
It's also remembering when you're remembering when you next get in those moments where you are now, you know? Like, if you
Do you mean a homeowner?
Yes, a homeowner. No, but you know, when you like, they come in roundabouts, right? Like, if it's a breakup, if it's getting knocked back in one of your dreams of buying a house, it's looking at that person and going, oh my gosh, I've come so far from where when that felt like that was rock bottom, whatever it may be. Yeah. It's like, even if it's an investment gone wrong, it's like you can always come back from it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Resilience.
We're
bloody resilient.
Yep.
Okay.
You can't knock us down.
Yeah.
We're like those things, you know, those like inflatable.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're not, oh.
You thought I was gone, I'll hit you in the face.
Yeah. I'm back.
How it goes.
Congrats, Sophie.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
And thank you to everyone in the community who sent many messages of support and encouragement.
Yeah.
It was so cool, wasn't it? Like,
can you go and buy your second one so we can have more cake?
Yeah. Don't you worry. Already working on it. Like,
nice.
I honestly have maybe found a second one.
Okay.
Have already gone through the process of getting refinanced and like potentially looking at actually doing it. So might have an update soon.
Nice.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Did you love this episode?
Yes.
Have you got property front and center in your
Yes.
mind? Sounds like you're a 5-year-old.
I know.
Now could be the time to take the first step towards what it is that you're wanting to buy. Whether that's your first home, whether that's a new flat, whether it's, I don't know, buying another investment property.
And thankfully, BNZ has the expertise and tools to help you get started, and their home loan partners are ready whenever you are.
You can book an appointment, you can ask millions of questions. Trust me, that is totally fine. And you can start turning the property dream that you have into a plan and hopefully soon into a reality. I know from experience that this can feel quite overwhelming, but when you're working with experts who can actually help you get there, it's such a burden off your shoulders to know that you've got the advice and the tools that you need to actually make it happen.
We know how hard it can feel and like overwhelming and just, so like a fish out of water when it comes to buying properties. So we're so thankful to BNZ to be helping us create and empower this podcast so that people can learn, and we just want you all to succeed. We want you all to succeed. We're all in your corner. And this is going to be such a game-changing property podcast series.
Yes. And for anyone that is going through the process of either buying a house or a flat or whatever it is that you're trying to do, please let us know, because we would love to be cheering you on from the sidelines. But thank you so much again to BNZ for empowering this podcast.